Billionaire publicly dumps her, but 5 years later, she returns with his secret triplets. Warm welcome to Beyond Color Stories. I'm your storyteller, James. Hope you're well wherever you are in the world. Before we start, let me send a little prayer your way. May peace wrap around you like a gentle light today, and may love find you exactly where you need it most. Selena wants to say a few words to you all. Over to Selena. Hello, my beautiful family. I'm Selena James. Thank you so much for loving our stories and for embracing my voice. You truly make me feel seen, valued, and appreciated. I'm here to say thank you from the bottom of my heart. And just a small request, if you enjoy what we do, please subscribe to the channel and like this story if it touches you. It really means the world to us. Now back to James for today's story. Hey everyone, welcome back again. It makes me so happy to hear how much you love Selena's voice. It touches us all deeply. So tell me, where are you listening from? Drop it in the comments below. Now let's begin today's story. Zayden Cross, the elusive billionaire mogul and media darling, stood beneath the harsh glare of the stage lights. His chiseled face was carved from stone. Every breath measured, rehearsed, and controlled as the nation held its breath, waiting for the words he would deliver. These weren't just any words. They were the kind to shatter headlines, crush hearts, and leave legacies trembling. Yet behind the cold lines of his jaw and the icy gaze in his piercing eyes, no one knew the truth pulsing beneath that tailored suit. No one saw the tremble in his fingers as the microphone buzzed in his palm, nor the war raging inside his guarded heart. Because standing just a few feet away was Ara Monroe, the woman who once softened the sharpest edges of his soul, the woman who whispered dreams into the hollows of his darkness and made him believe in love when he had stopped believing in anything real. Now that same woman stood with fragile courage on the stage beside him, her midnight blue dress clinging to her trembling form, eyes wide but shining with a painful mix of sorrow and restraint. Her fingers gripped the silver chain holding the moonstone necklace he'd given her last winter, under a sky full of stars, when he kissed her so slowly that time seemed to pause. When his whispered "I love you" felt like a velvet promise forever etched in their hearts. But tonight, none of that mattered, because Zayden, with the whole world watching and their romance crumbling, spoke the cruelest words in a voice as cold as steel. It's over. And the silence that followed wasn't quiet. It was deafening, a scream so deep it fractured something invisible, but sacred between them. As the audience gasped and cameras zoomed in on her face, she did not break down as expected. She did not run, scream, beg, or cry. Instead, she stood still, so still that her silence spoke louder than any outburst. Her eyes shimmered like twin storms. Her throat tightened as if swallowing every unshed tear, every unanswered question, every betrayal disguised as logic. The necklace, once a promise, now hung like a ghost of hope that no longer belonged here. A relic of a love story turned public spectacle, a weaponized memory gleaming cruelly under the studio lights. Her hands, usually warm and gentle, clutched it not for show, but for survival, holding on as if grasping a piece of herself still intact. Because in that moment she understood the difference between heartbreak in private and heartbreak on a stage. 1,000 eyes stared, judging, sympathizing, mocking, or simply watching. None knew that just hours before, Zayden had kissed her forehead and whispered, "I'm scared of how much I need you." But now he looked like a stranger wrapped in control. And maybe that was the worst part, not the ending, but that he chose to end it this way. As if love was a headline and she was disposable. As if their nights filled with whispered secrets and silent touches had been illusions. What the world didn't see, what even Zayden couldn't grasp as he forced his gaze away, was the storm brewing inside Ara. Not anger, but a sadness so deep it became stillness. A quiet so profound it stole her breath. In the dressing room, where his cologne still lingered like a cruel reminder, she let her fingers slip from the necklace and curl into her lap, whispering words no one else heard. "I still love you." Words not of hope but surrender, because she knew now love alone couldn't hold someone who chose fear over faith, who fled feelings because vulnerability was too dangerous for a man used to control. Though he faltered behind the cameras, jaw clenched as his eyes glanced down the hallway. He kept walking, convinced detachment was protection, convinced leaving her behind spared him deeper pain, unaware that in trying to save himself, he had destroyed something sacred. As Ara slipped out the building's back door, her shadow melting into the cold night air, she didn't look back. Not because she didn't care, but because looking back would mean falling apart. And she couldn't afford that. Not now, not with the secret she carried deep inside her. A secret blossoming like fragile fire. 3 lives, 3 tiny heartbeats. A part of Zayden he didn't know he'd given her. A part that would grow every day without his knowledge or presence. Because love had left, but life had stayed. And now she had to choose survival over sentiment, strength over sorrow, motherhood over mourning. As city lights flickered and the media frenzy exploded behind her, Era stepped into the unknown, her spine forged from heartbreak, her soul aching for the man who loved her, but lacked the courage to keep her. Era's footsteps echoed softly on the wooden porch of her new coastal cottage. The salty breeze tangled her dark hair as she leaned against the railing, eyes fixed on the restless ocean mirroring her turmoil. Each crashing wave whispered strange comfort, as if nature itself recognized the weight she bore. 3 fragile lives nestled inside her, a secret so profound it tethered her heart to both hope and fear in equal measure. Though the world outside remained unaware, inside her quiet sanctuary, the truth pulsed like a steady drum beneath her skin, unstoppable and relentless. Only weeks had passed since the news, 2 pink lines stark on a tiny test strip shattering her fragile calm. She remembered it clearly. Sterile clinic walls, the doctor's gentle yet firm voice confirming what her heart already knew. Triplets, he said. The word hung heavy and bright, filling her with emotions so intense they threatened to drown her. Tears slid silently down her cheeks. Tears no camera caught, no audience witnessed. A private mourning for the life she thought lost, and a cautious celebration for the unexpected miracle growing within. For these 3 beating hearts, her new reason to fight, to heal, and to love beyond all she'd known. Cradling her rounded belly beneath soft fabric, Era whispered promises to the tiny lives within. Lullabies born of hope and sorrow intertwined. You'll never feel rejection like I did, she vowed, her voice trembling with fierce tenderness, as if by saying it aloud she could shield them from the pain that had scarred her soul and forged her resolve. Though Zayden's shadow haunted her dreams, his cold eyes the way he turned away without a glance, she clung to the knowledge that this time she would protect her heart and theirs, building walls strong enough to withstand even the sharpest betrayals. In that quiet coastal town, far from bright lights and prying eyes, Era began weaving a new life, thread by thread. Days filled with preparation and silent prayers. Nights spent reading books on motherhood, whispering stories of love that once was. Stories she hoped would someday gently bridge past and future. Even as her heart grappled with what had been and what could never be, each morning she watched the sunrise paint the sky with pink and gold, reminding herself that like the dawn, she too could rise, reborn in strength and purpose. Though her body grew heavier with each passing week, weighted by the promise of life and solitude's burden, her spirit grew lighter, buoyed by fierce love for her unborn children. A love refusing to diminish despite absence or rejection. Sometimes in quiet moments when the world slept and waves whispered lullabies to shore, Ara traced gentle circles on her belly, feeling faint fluttering kicks singing vitality and hope. She smiled through tears, knowing that no matter how broken she felt, she was still whole. For them, their fierce protector and unwavering champion, their safe place in a world often cruel and unkind. Nights were hardest. The silence after the day's storm, the ache of loneliness, no distraction could fill. But even then, she found solace in the steady heartbeat growing inside her. A reminder that love endures quietly, unseen, and that from heartbreak, a new story was being written. A story of resilience, courage, and the unbreakable bond between mother and child. She never truly hated Zayden. How could she, when his memory lingered like the fading scent of a rose long past bloom? Instead, she grieved the man who let go, the man who retreated behind walls too high for her to climb, the man who lost himself to fear instead of fighting for what they had. Yet beneath the hurt and disappointment, a fragile pulse of love still beat quietly, a secret ember glowing faintly in the dark, waiting for a time to shine again. But for now it remained her silent strength, guiding her through uncertain days ahead. As weeks turned to months, Era transformed pain into power, decorating her home with soft pastels and tiny clothes folded neatly on shelves. Each stitch sewn with prayer and hope that her children's lives would hold more light than darkness, more laughter than tears. As her belly blossomed with the miracle of three, so did her resolve to be the strong, loving, unbreakable mother they deserved. In quiet moments before sleep, she softly spoke to them, stories of fierce love once true, a love shattered but never erased. In those whispers, she dreamed for them a future bright and safe, free from shadows that chased her. Outside, the ocean sang its endless song, a constant companion to lonely nights, waves crashing like the heartbeat of the earth, reminding her that life moves in cycles of loss and renewal. Even the deepest wounds, she knew, could heal in time. Each day brought new challenges, exhaustion, doubt, the ache of missing the life she dreamed of with Satan. But she faced each dawn quietly determined, knowing her journey was about more than survival. It was about thriving, about crafting a new kind of love, fierce and unyielding, born in fire and hope. She kept a journal, thoughts spilling across pages in ink as dark as night, words capturing fear, hope, sorrow, and joy, a testament to who she was becoming and who she'd be. She sought no comfort from others, walking this path alone, knowing some battles must be fought in solitude, some pain too deep for words. Though Zayden appeared in dreams refusing to let bitterness consume her or let the past define her worth, Era carried Zayden's absence like a shadow stretching across her days, a ghost whispering doubts and fears. But she met those shadows with quiet defiance, building walls not to shut out love, but to protect the fragile hope she nurtured inside. The necklace he had once given her, once worn proudly, now lay folded carefully in a drawer. No longer a symbol of loss, but of lessons learned and strength gained. Though she never sought him out or expected his return, a small part of her longed for closure, for a moment when he might see the life growing inside her and grasp the magnitude of what he'd lost. But for now, she focused on the present, the miracles she carried, the new story she was writing with every breath, a story of courage, endurance, and love that transcended heartbreak. Days grew longer, ocean breezes cooler, and Ara found solace in simple pleasures, a warm cup of tea in morning light, the scent of salt in the air, the soft sound of waves lapping the shore, each a reminder that life moved forward and so must she. Nights were restless, filled with dreams both sweet and painful, yet each dawn brought renewed resolve, fueled by the knowledge that her children depended on the strength she summoned from deep within, a strength born not from perfection, but perseverance. Sometimes she imagined what life might have been if Zayden had chosen differently, but she quickly pushed those thoughts aside, refusing to dwell on what could never be, choosing instead to embrace the life she had, the love that now defined her purpose. Her heart was fragile and fierce, a paradox that made her beautiful and strong in ways she never imagined. The pain of rejection still echoed in quiet moments, but it no longer ruled her. Instead, it became the soil from which a new love grew, one that would sustain her and her children through every storm and uncertain tomorrow. In the quiet hours before sleep, she whispered their names softly, a prayer and promise to protect, nurture, and love them unconditionally. In those whispers, Era found peace, fragile but unbreakable, a thread tying her heart to theirs, forged in love and sealed with hope. 5 years had passed since she first held her three precious children close. Each day since was a journey of love, resilience, and quiet strength filling the walls of their humble beach house with pure joy. The laughter of Liam, Luna, and Leo was a symphony of hope echoing through every room, woven from Ara's unwavering devotion and endless patience. Watching them grow, each unique yet connected by the invisible bond of shared heritage, her heart swelled with pride and bittersweet longing. Their eyes mirrored Zayden's gaze so closely it sometimes took her breath away. Those innocent reflections pierced her with a mix of love and pain she could barely contain. Still, she pressed forward, cradling her heartache beneath lullabies, bedtime stories, and gentle kisses that smoothed away the day's troubles, replacing them with dreams shaped by love, not loss. Liam, the eldest, was fiercely protective, a quiet guardian echoing his father's strength, tempered by the tenderness Ara had nurtured in him. Luna, with her soft smile and gentle hands, was the family's heartbeat, her kindness radiating like sunlight, reminding Ara daily of compassion's power. Leo, the youngest, was a whirlwind of energy and wit, his infectious laughter a constant light. The spark that showed joy could always find a way, even through the darkest nights. Each evening, as the sun painted the sky with orange and lavender, Era gathered her children close and sang lullabies learned from her mother, songs filled with promises of safety, hope, and boundless love. Her voice carried them gently into sleep, a shield against the lingering shadows of the past. And often her thoughts drifted to Zayden, a name spoken only in whispers, a fragile prayer to the darkness. If only he knew, those words carried the weight of unspoken emotions. A yearning for a connection severed too soon, a hope that someday he might understand the depth of her sacrifice and the fierce love she held for the children who carried his blood, his eyes, and a piece of his heart. Their questions about their father came often, filled with innocent curiosity. Ara answered softly, calm but laced with emotion. Someday you'll know your story. It was a vow that comforted yet postponed truths she wasn't ready to share. She guarded their innocence carefully, knowing the pain honesty could bring, but preparing herself for the day when answers would be necessary. Their daily life was a dance of love and responsibility, mornings filled with breakfast and school, afternoons on the beach, evenings steeped in stories and songs that bound them as a family, forged not by circumstance, but choice and devotion. Era's hands, once trembling with uncertainty, were now steady and sure, guiding her children with balance, discipline and warmth shaping their characters, grounding them in belonging and security. The walls of their beach house bore witness to countless memories, scraped knees soothed with kisses, triumphant cheers for first steps and words, quiet kitchen talks where Era taught strength, kindness, and resilience, lessons born from heartbreak and healing. Yet nights were sometimes loneliest when silence stretched long and shadows deepened. In those moments she whispered his name again, trembling with regret, longing, and unspoken forgiveness, a secret shared only with the stars. Zayden, if only you knew, she breathed, imagining him seeing Liam's protective stance, Luna's gentle smile, Leo's sparkling eyes. Would it soften the coldness she glimpsed in his gaze all those years ago? More than anything, Era wished he understood the depth of her love and sacrifice, not just for herself, but for the three children who were her whole world. Living proof of a love once there and still lingering, fragile but unbroken. That love and loss shaped her daily choices, fueling her determination to give her children joy and security, shielding them from the pain that once threatened to consume her. Era was no longer the frightened woman lost to media shadows. She was a mother, protector, and warrior, her heart healed and hardened by the fierce love radiating through every corner of her life. Through every challenge and triumph, she carried the past quietly in her soul, letting it guide but not define her, knowing the future belonged to her children and the family they created together in their small house by the sea. Her love was boundless and unwavering, a force transforming pain into purpose, sorrow into strength. In their laughter, kisses, and whispered, "I love yous," Era found a peace she never thought possible, fragile, precious, and fiercely guarded against any storm. In the quiet moments before sleep, holding them close, feeling their steady hearts beat against hers, she was reminded that no matter the past, love was the force carrying them forward, stronger, braver, forever bound by lullabies sung softly in the night. "They're mine, aren't they?" His voice cracked, brittle as glass. Era, who had faced this moment in countless dreams and nightmares, stood firm, Her knees trembled, but her chin lifted with quiet dignity, eyes shimmering with a single tear. I wasn't going to let them become a scandal, she said, her defiance not to push him away, but to protect the fragile strength she had left. He turned to the children. Liam, boldest of the three, stepped forward cautiously, a lion cub learning to roar. Zayden knelt, trembling inside, his eyes locking with Liam's, mirrors of his own past, pain and fire. You kept them from me, he whispered, not with anger, but with a father's aching regret. You left me first, Ara replied softly, her voice threaded with raw longing. The old wound between them reopened, not with hate, but with unfinished yearning. His hand brushed hers, a spark igniting nerves long dormant. Neither flinched. This electric current was familiar, terrifying, undeniable. Zayden asked their names. Liam, Leona, and Leor, she whispered. The names hung in the room like sacred promises. As the smallest child toddled forward, Zayden's heart cracked open at the sight, their innocence, their undeniable connection. I see it now, he murmured. All the pieces I didn't know were missing. Ara's gaze dropped, torn between hope and devastation. I was scared, she admitted. If you knew, they'd be used, manipulated, just like us. His jaw clenched, not at her, but the cruel world that had poisoned their lives. You should have told me, he said, sorrow filling his voice as he reached out to their giggling child. Ara swallowed the ache and whispered, I didn't know how. He sighed, older now, burdened by lost time. Let me know them, he pleaded, humility softening his fierce exterior. The triplets approached him, curious and accepting. Ara nearly wept watching this powerful man cradle their softness, a man discovering a new part of himself. Do they know about me? He asked. They know their father is brave, strong, and far away, she replied. The truth stung. They deserve the truth, he said gently. Liam stepped closer. Are you our real dad? He asked with innocent boldness. Time stopped. Yes, Zayden said firmly. The boy nodded, something settling in his heart. Zayden looked at Ara, truly saw her for the first time, not as the woman who left, but the mother of his children. I need to fix this, he said softly. Not for me, but for them. And maybe for us. She nodded, unable to trust her voice. Outside, under a starry sky, they stood close, two souls raw and tangled by years of silence and regret. You humiliated me on live TV, Zayden, she said, voice shaking but steady. He flinched, pain flickering in his eyes. I was scared, not of you, but of how much I love you, how much I still do. Tears fell freely, mixing with the night's drizzle as if the heavens mourned with them. She hugged herself, torn between pride and desire. He moved closer, tenderly brushing damp hair from her face. I never stopped wanting you, Alara, he whispered. The words rolled over her like thunder, igniting long-buried emotions. Her heart pounded, time suspended. He took her hand, kissed her knuckles with reverence, and in that simple act, she glimpsed the boy she once loved. They stood wrapped in each other's gravity, silent apologies and unspoken promises swirling around them. Why didn't you fight for me when I needed you most? She whispered. Because I thought I had to protect you. From me, he replied, voice broken. The irony struck deep. She had wanted to be chosen, not hidden. The night deepened. Stars glowed brighter despite passing clouds. He cupped her face, wiping tears, forehead touching hers. I don't want to spend my life pretending I don't love you. Her resistance shattered, but instead of kissing him, she stepped back. It's not that simple, Zayden. You can't fix everything with words and rain. His eyes softened. Then let me prove it. With time. She exhaled, nodding. A quiet promise that the door was ajar, not closed. As the rain fell heavier, neither moved, neither said goodbye. Something fragile had begun to heal. When she finally returned inside, her heart was heavy, but lighter than before. He remained on the balcony, drenched in rain and hope, holding the memory of her touch and the promise of what might come. That night neither slept, not from nightmares, but because their hearts were too full, too raw, tangled in the fragile thread of a new beginning. Rain-soaked and restless, Ara stood in the kitchen as the sunrise spilled gold across the countertops. The kettle hummed softly behind her, but her mind was tangled with memories of the night before, her heart unsure whether to guard itself or begin rebuilding. A gentle knock broke the silence, followed by the door creaking open. Zayden stepped inside, voice quiet and careful. "I brought coffee and donuts." She turned, surprised to see him holding a box labeled, "For the world's best mom and her little monsters," scrawled clumsily. His smile was awkward but sincere. Despite the lingering ache, she forced a small smile and murmured, "Thank you." That moment marked the beginning of something fragile and new. Over the next week, Zayden showed up, not just for Ara, but for the kids too. He crouched awkwardly to tie Luna's shoelaces, listened to her endless stories, and quietly stood by Ara's side without asking. Even Liam's guarded gaze couldn't deter him. He helped with homework, fumbling through math, and stayed for chaotic dinners where burnt pancakes set off the smoke alarm. His laughter, deep and genuine, filled the kitchen, softening the edges of old wounds. One night she found him outside, tears silently tracing his face. She sat with him in silence, because healing sometimes means just being there. Days slipped by in these small moments, clumsy lunch packing, stolen smiles, and little acts of love. One afternoon she found him asleep on the couch. Leo curled against him like he belonged there. Her chest tightened, painfully sweet, and she draped a blanket over them, lingering a moment longer than needed, fingers brushing his hair. When his eyes fluttered open and met hers, no surprise, just quiet recognition. "Thank you," he whispered, barely audible. She nodded, understanding everything. Slowly, life shifted into a new rhythm. Breakfast together, walking Luna to dance class, rainy day rides, Zayden's off-key singing, playful lion impersonations, and laughter shared. Even Lara's guarded smiles began to crack as forgiveness wove itself through the everyday. One evening, she caught him staring at Luna's drawing, a stick family crowned with love and tiny imaginary cats. "She drew me with a crown," he said softly, and she smiled. "You do act like royalty sometimes." His laughter was husky, eyes full of wonder and disbelief. Forgiveness wasn't a grand gesture, she realized. It was these small shared moments, memories made instead of mourned. And when he whispered, "I've missed you," in the quiet kitchen, no walls rose between them. Their accidental touch sparked something unspoken, a slow and steady rewriting of their future. Later, tucked in bed, Ara found an old letter in the drawer, words Zayden had written years ago, never sent. "I'm afraid of losing you before I ever truly have you." His confession washed over her, raw and fragile, and she finally understood. He hadn't left because he didn't care. He left because he was afraid. That night, holding the letter, she found him by the fire, lost in the flicker of flames. She placed the letter beside him without a word. He looked at her, voice cracking as he confessed his broken past and his fear of love. Gently, she touched his chest and whispered, "You were never unworthy of love." His eyes widened, as if hearing it for the first time. Slowly, he leaned in, and their kiss was soft, full of apology, longing, and hope. When they parted, his arms held her like a lifeline. "Don't ever let me go this time," she whispered, and he tightened his embrace, his lips pressing softly to her hair. That night, wrapped in his arms as the fire faded, Ara exhaled a breath she hadn't known she'd been holding for 5 long years. The fire in the hearth glowed softly as Alara stirred in Zayden's arms, midnight wrapping them in quiet stillness. Her heart was calm yet alert, sensing something sacred unfolding. Outside, distant thunder rumbled, a gentle warning as the storm edged closer. Trees swayed in the warning wind, shadows dancing across the walls, while inside the warmth cocooned them, sealing the world away. They sat in silence, no words needed, their quiet filled with understanding and tender connection. When Alara finally shifted, brushing hair behind her ear, Zayden reached for her hand, not possessive, but grounding. She met his calm, vulnerable gaze, lips parted as if to speak. Instead, he smiled softly, rose, and returned with 2 mugs of cocoa, steam curling like old, comforting promises. They sipped slowly, knees brushing, eyes locking in moments that stretched like lifetimes. Outside, rain began to fall, thunder rolling closer, casting their faces in flickering silver light. Laughter broke the tension, light, silly, and Alara smiled deeply, warmth blossoming in her chest. Then the space between them shrank. Their kiss was slow, reverent, not hunger but reverence, a sacred rediscovery. Her fingers traced his jaw, his hand cradled her head, gentle and protective, as if holding what he thought he'd lost forever. When he pulled back, forehead resting against hers, he whispered, "You still feel like home." Her breath caught as she replied, "You still make me feel safe." Rising together, they moved to the couch, shadows flickering behind them. Their kisses deepened with intention, each touch a question and answer, healing old wounds. He whispered her name with emotion. She threaded fingers through his hair. Their bodies moved in slow, sacred rhythm, a prayer of reunion and forgiveness. As dawn broke, the storm faded. Ilara breathed in the scent of him, the safety she thought lost but had found again. Zayden held her close, promising silently never to let go. And for the first time in years, she didn't flinch, falling, because this time she knew he would catch her. Morning light painted their faces as they woke, quiet, content. Together they tended to the children, the simple acts of family weaving them closer. Before leaving, Zayden paused at the door, voice low with resolve. "I have to do something today. Something important for us." Later news spread. Zayden, the ruthless CEO, stood before the cameras, vulnerable and unguarded, apologizing publicly for the pain he'd caused. His confession was raw and sincere. He had never stopped loving her. The city listened in stunned silence. Back in her boutique, Ilara's heart trembled with hope and disbelief. Customers turned to her with support, strangers and friends alike showing kindness. And then the doorbell rang. There stood Zayden, not as a powerful man, but simply as himself, holding sunflowers in their daughter's sketchbook, his voice breaking as he said, "I don't want the world, Era. I want you, United States, the life I never had the courage to choose before." In that moment, no apology was needed. His truth filled the room, and her heart completely. With a breath, she crossed the counter and pulled him down by the collar, her lips meeting his in a fierce, silent forgiveness. A kiss that drowned out every doubt, every whisper, every camera lens. The boutique faded away as her fingers tangled in his hair, deepening the kiss not with desperation, but surrender. When she finally pulled back, tears glistening, she whispered, "Welcome home." He buried his face in her neck, arms wrapping around her like he'd never let go. That warmth lingered long after the doors closed, woven into quiet mornings filled with the clatter of dishes, children's laughter, and Zayden's patient voice reading bedtime stories. Every pancake flipped, every sock matched, every juice box unwrapped was an act of rebuilding, not with apologies but with effort. Leo painted Zayden's nails glittery blue, Luna shared poems about syrup rivers, and Liam begged for soccer tips. Watching them, Ara's heart bloomed with joy she didn't know it still held. Their ordinary days stacked into a foundation stronger than before. And soon she found herself reaching for his hand without thinking, smiling, just watching him with the kids. One evening, under flickering fairy lights, Zayden approached with 3 crayon drawings, their children's simple, perfect declarations of love. "I don't have a ring," he said, voice thick with hope, "but I have this. Will you marry me?" Era's whispered yes shifted the world, sealing their promise with a kiss as giggles erupted from the window and laughter filled their home. Their wedding was simple, wildflowers, linen ribbons, and tiny hands weaving love into every detail. Standing barefoot on the sand, Ara felt the quiet power of survival and love, ready to walk into forever. Zayden's vow was raw and true. "I vow to choose you every day, not as a perfect man, but one who's learned to cherish." Era's voice, steady with grace, promised the same. Love, real and imperfect, home at last. No rings, just bracelets braided by little hands, and a kiss salty with promise. The children's cheers filled the air, and their family danced into the night, laughter and light blending with the stars. In that quiet, perfect moment, with hands entwined and hearts aligned, Zayden whispered, This is what I always wanted. I just didn't know how to say it. Eros smiled against his jaw. You don't have to say it anymore. You live it now. And as the fire crackled, the stars bore witness to a love transformed, enduring, unbroken, forever.